Hey y'all, Erin here. Welcome back. I cannot believe it, but this is the fourth video. I have done this 4 years now that I have talked about my books that I read. So I just recently went back and watched my previous videos and things have changed a little bit over the past 4 years. 4 years ago, I was very focused on homeschool, marriage, motherhood, fitness, finance, stuff like that. And now almost all fiction. So it's interesting the different stages of the life you're in. Back then, I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a baby, and I just didn't have the capacity to read as much. And when I had that time, I wanted to learn something. So now I read a lot for just enjoyment, for fun, and for entertainment. So you'll kind of see those choices reflected today. So I'm sitting here in my favorite room in my house, my book room. I got my favorite t-shirt on, my Christmas tree made of books, my favorite black yoga pants, my favorite pearl earrings next to my pupster Penny. He's cuddled up, he always wants to be near me. And I'm talking about one of my favorite things, books. So thank you for joining me today. Let's just jump right in. All right, the first book that I want to talk about is called Mom Heart Moments by Sally Clarkson. This is a 1-year devotional. It is wonderful. If you have children, I definitely recommend this book because it is a scripture, a short devotion, and then a question to think about. And it's very, very encouraging. So this was something I read throughout the entire year. Great book, loved it. All right, the next 3 that I'm going to talk about are the Bible studies I did. So I did Leading Wherever You Are in the spring. I did In His Image in our summer Bible study, and then A Great Cloud of Witness this fall. And so out of the 3 Bible studies I did, my favorite was definitely Leading Wherever You Are. I love the in-depth study of Joshua because I don't think I've done that before, and I love the leadership aspect of that. I've done Bible studies for years and years and years, and I don't think I've ever done a leadership one before, so loved it. All 3 were great, but that was my favorite one. All right, next I want to talk about, I did 2 Christian fiction, and they're both by Francine Rivers. So this one was historic fiction, and this one was more contemporary, and both of these books were amazing. If you like Christian fiction or just fiction in general, these 2 were so good. I read them, I think both of these within 24 hours. You can see they're big books, but I just couldn't put them down. The topics were interesting. It was just such a page turner. Very, very good. Loved them. All right, the next ones I'm going to talk about is my favorite author of 2023 was Kristen Hanna. And I read one of her books last year. The first book I ever read from her was called The 4 Winds. And it was so good that now I'm just like, I'm going to read all of her books. So I read 5 of her books this year. I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, my favorite one last. But the first one I'm talking about is called The Great Alone, and this book, I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but they were so good. This one, one of the main characters of this story is Alaska, and it sounds interesting saying one of the main characters, but she makes Alaska come alive in this book, and it's so interesting. I do want to go ahead and say this book does cover domestic violence, so if that's something that you don't want to read about, I'm going to just say that up front. It does end on a hopeful note, so that's one of the reasons why I did love it. So good. That was my number 5 of her book. The next one is called Winter Garden. This is my number 4 of hers. I enjoyed this book because I learned again about another part of history that I did not know about. She covers the fall of what was called Leningrad, and this was modern day St. Petersburg in Russia. And so I just learned so much about that piece of time that I did not know about. It was very, very good. Also, it's a relationship between 2 sisters, and it's a relationship between the mother and the daughters. And throughout this whole book, the daughters could not understand why the mother the way she was, and finally at the end, they finally understood her story, and it was so good. My number 3 Kristen Hanna book is Homefront, and this book brought back so many memories to me. The main character is a female pilot, helicopter pilot, in about the 2001, 2005, that time period. And I joined the Air Force in 2005, so I could kind of relate to the things that they're talking about in the story. But what I could not relate to is that the main character was a mother at the time, and she had to go off and fight while her husband and children stayed home. So that was definitely an interesting aspect to me. The main character was constantly trying to paint a picture where things were not what it seemed, and she was okay, and in reality, she was struggling with a lot of different things as a helicopter pilot fighting in a war. So it was a very interesting dynamic, things I could relate to, but also a side of things that I did not experience. So it was interesting seeing that side of things. All right, my number 2 Chris and Hannah book, I got this one for Christmas, and then I, of course, read it within 24 hours of starting it. It was so good. This one's called Magic Hour, and it centers on 2 sisters. One sister is a police chief in a small Washington town, and then the second main character is a child psychologist. And there is a little girl that is discovered, and this little girl cannot speak, and they need to work together to try to help this little girl. So it is very amazing seeing what they do. I'm interested. I was a police in the security forces and the Air Force, and then I was got my master's in human resources in counseling. So I was interested in those 2 aspects to see how those 2 things work together to help this little girl. It was amazing. And then my number 1 Chris and Hannah book is The Nightingale. This book stuck with me so long. It takes place in France, and it takes place during World War II. And it goes from their perspective. The 2 main characters are they're sisters again, the older sister and the younger sister. The older sister seems like the more responsible one. The younger sister is more kind of impulsive, and they both have these 2 major impacts during the war, and you cannot tell who the narrator at the very end. It goes in the future. You can't tell who it is until the very, very end. So that keeps you guessing the whole time, like who's talking in the future. And the things that they talk about during the war are some things that you're familiar with, and then some things like have you read a lot of things about how the French was involved in World War II? So that was kind of interesting. The Chris and Hannah, she based one of the characters off of a real life story that she'd heard about that was very interesting and inspiring to her. So this whole book kept my attention so much. There's so many things that happened that just I really kept thinking about, and this is the one that I would tell everyone to start off with if you want to read a Chris and Hannah book. So good. Okay, and then this is my giant pile of fiction books. I'll just briefly go through them because I guess I could be sitting here a long time talking about these. But when I find an author that I like, then I typically read everything they write. I discovered Catherine Center this year, and she wrote The Bodyguard. So a lot of these I would say are like kind of romantic comedies. So the main character is an actor. He has a stalker, so he needs to get a bodyguard. He doesn't want a bodyguard. In comes the female bodyguard because she feels like they can make her blend in and no one will know that he is a bodyguard and no one would suspect her and all these different things. It was interesting hearing like the different things that bodyguards go through because they're doing a lot of like research beforehand. Wherever their person's going, they're doing a lot of proactive things that hopefully they won't need to do anything as the situation progresses. And then it was very funny, cute, happy ending, of course. So it started out with the Bodyguard with Catherine Center. And then I read Things You Save in a Fire. The main character is a firefighter here. So that was interesting. Again, she talked about some of their training, some of the culture of firefighters. That was interesting. And I read one more by hers called Hello Stranger. I don't have that one. I read it from the library, but it was very good. The main character was obsessed with her dog, so I'm obsessed with mine, so that was kind of interesting. And then she had a medical condition I'd never heard of, so that was interesting hearing how she's working through that diagnosis. But yeah, I read 3 of her books, loved it. Then I found Book Lovers. And when I find a book, again, author that I like, then I did Beach Read. and People We Meet on Vacation. And out of her 3 books, the first one I read of hers was my favorite, Book Lovers. Then I think I kind of randomly stumbled upon this one. This was called The Spanish Love Deception, and this takes place mostly in Spain, so that was fun. Then I found Allie Hazelwood somehow, and she's kind of like a STEM person. So this one took place that she's a biology person, so that was interesting seeing the biology aspect. This is a neurobiologist. This was a physics, and then this was chess. So I liked seeing that kind of aspect of the science and the academia and that kind of process. Then this summer, I stumbled upon the Amazon show, The Summer I Turned Pretty. I thought the show was pretty good, so I wanted to read the books. So I read all 3 books. They were very good. And then somehow I stumbled on a Nicholas Sparks kick. I think the first 2 I did was these 2. I think I got these at our local thrift shop for a few dollars. And the first one I think was See Me, and then The Return, and they were both so good. It's interesting having a male author writing these stories because it's just a little bit different. And then I read The Wish, and then I read The Choice, and I liked all of them. They were all so good. I did start Hard Is Not the Same Thing as Bad, and this one, Holy Huga, and I just haven't finished them. So I want to finish them this year. I just haven't finished them yet, but they were so interesting. They're almost, to me, probably like book study kind of books or Bible study-ish books. So I do want to finish them. They were good. And that is what I read this year. So thank you for sitting through or listening. And I had a few friends on Facebook and Instagram comment on my picture I posted and give me some suggestions. So if you have any suggestions, especially in Christian fiction or Bible studies that you think I should definitely check out, put them in the comments and I will definitely look them up. And if you read any of these, what did you think? Which books really stood out in your head this year? I'd love to look those up and try them out too. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next year. Happy reading.